Witness your presence in its utter nakedness. Don't spiritualize it. Don't calm down its sacred intensity. Don't bypass the lessons. Don't force it to be what it's not. Our mind actually has a tendency to clothe our life, our existence, with a certain personality, with a certain set of rules and norms, blindly picked from society, religion, books, family, school, and so on. And these norms and ideas get so deep in our psyche that we never realize that these ideas, these fears and desires and doubts, they are not even our own. They are somebody else's, but unconsciously we have made them as our own. It's so important to go beyond the mind and stop living a life according to the lens of others. In this episode, I want to talk about one interesting fear that we all feel unconsciously or consciously. And hopefully it will give you a certain self-reflection to understand how you want to lead your existence. I'm Chandresh Bhardwaj, and this is Break the Norms. Namaste everyone. So I'm excited about this episode because I'm actually answering a question that came from one of you. And before I read the question, if you want me to answer your questions in the podcast, feel free to send it through my website CB Meditates or on my Instagram @CB Meditates, or just email it to info@breakthenorms.com. This question came from Emily, who lives in Vancouver. And she wrote, I have heard you talk about the importance of aloneness. I feel very inspired when I'm listening to you, but I feel disappointed when I'm not able to follow your advice practically. Why am I afraid to be alone? Do you come across others who are afraid of this aloneness, or is it just me? So Emily, first of all, thank you for sending the question, and I think it's very brave of you to ask this publicly, because most people don't ask these kind of questions publicly. And many times people feel maybe it's just me and I would come across as someone weak or silly if I ask my question. But obviously the answer is, you could ask me anything and there will be a good amount of people who will relate to your problem. And in your case, this is definitely that I come across very, very often. But even if you had asked that, am I the only one who loves, pumpkin spice latte? And still there will be a good percentage in my audience who'll say, yeah, you're the only one. So, never ever hesitate to ask the question, because you could ask anything and it will definitely appeal to certain audience. And I think we all come from a unique conditioning, unique challenges, and our questions could be very unique. And that's what spirituality is all about, asking the right questions, because they lead to the right answers. So specifically, just for this question, Emily, you are not the only one who's afraid of this aloneness. There are so many who are afraid of this aloneness. In fact, I know people who, the moment they enter their home or their apartment, they turn on the TV or they turn on music or they turn on something because they don't want to be in the silence. They want something to be happening in the background. And when I used to live in New York, I knew this neighbor of mine who would keep doing something over the weekend. And when I met him, he said, today I'm working on this table. Today I'm working on this fridge. And his wife was standing next to him. And she said, he keeps working on something even if there's nothing wrong with the things. And he looked at her and then he looked at me and he said, I just like to do things because, it's holiday. Like, it's my day off. I got to do something, otherwise I'll just go crazy. And the wife agreed, and she said, yeah, I think it's better you keep doing something, or else you'll make me crazy. And he was not the only one to think that if he doesn't do anything on a holiday, then he'll go crazy. There are so many of us who actually get depressed on a day off, who actually don't know what to do when it's day off. And I can tell you one thing, that how you spend your time on a day off says a lot about how you understand your silence. If you constantly want to be part of crowd, if you constantly want to be part of a gathering because you don't want to, meet yourself, because you don't want to connect with your silence, then definitely you need to spend more time with your silence. It's just very, very important. Our aloneness is actually one of the very important steps toward experiencing the peak of our awareness. Because when we are born, we are trained to be in the crowd. We are not trained to be introvert. We are not trained to be in silence. We are trained to be out, to make noise, to make certain sound. And those people who don't speak much or who are introverts, they always feel they are misfits. They don't fit in properly. And it divides our society in a way. The ones who don't speak much, the ones who self-reflect often, they are made to feel that something is wrong with them. And the ones who are speaking out loud and making some noise, they are made to feel they're doing something. So even the ones who are constantly doing something, they feel they need to keep doing something, because otherwise they'll not be taken seriously, they'll not look busy. I'm actually thinking of this episode from Seinfeld where George Costanza, he gets this job in the Met Stadium, I think. And he realizes that if he keeps showing that he's doing something, he'll be taken seriously. So he puts on this face every time he comes across any senior member of his office or his boss or his colleagues. And he keeps showing this face that he's busy, and everyone starts to believe that he's actually busy, and that just kept his job very safe. And somewhere all of us are doing the same thing. We are pretending to be busy, we are pretending to play some game so that everything stays in order, so that everything can just continue being in the way it is, so that the circus keeps on playing itself. But that's not good, that's not fun, because the more we lie to ourselves, the more our mind will believe the lie, and then it starts to create the stories, the situations around us based on that lie, and it just gets very complicated. So being alone is almost like a meditation. It's not easy. So if Emily, you or anyone else is feeling that it's not coming naturally to be alone, that's fine. We are not trained to be alone. No one teaches us to be alone. It's an art. It's something the more you practice, the better you will get at it. And one of the things is, you have to understand when you have nothing to do, when you're not doing your job, when you're not with your friends, your family, your partner, how do you feel in that moment? Are you able to just simply relax? And I'm not saying watching Netflix or listening to music or, writing a journal. No, just being still, just being one with your breathing. That's aloneness. And when aloneness starts to cultivate itself, it's directly connected to your awareness. The more you become comfortable with your aloneness, the more you develop your relationship with the awareness, the conscious energy. And one of the biggest benefits that starts to happen as a result of this, you cultivate much better and deeper relationships. Because I think it's not even a hidden, fact anymore that we choose wrong relationships simply because we don't want to be alone. I have come across people who live a very depressed and sad life. And the moment they get a partner, they start to feel a little happy. Even if the partner is, abusive, or if the partner is not in alignment with their values, they continue to be around with that partner just because they can forget who they are, just because the partner takes them into a little interesting journey for a while. And when the partner leaves them, they again fall back to the same level of loneliness. And there are many people who constantly feel the fear of being alone only because they feel, what if I'll never get a partner and I'll always be alone? And this is something that I loved about Tantra journey, that the more you practice the meditations or the Tantra teachings, the more you start to embrace the aloneness, because in aloneness, you start to become so comfortable with your silence. You start to become so comfortable with who you are. And then you don't feel the need to be with anyone to fulfill any vacuum, to fulfill any gap. I was sitting on a panel with UCLA. They did this talk a few months ago in downtown LA. And the talk was about the digital dating. And I was sitting along with few other, experts in online dating websites or relationship experts, and like some really cool people from the online digital dating industry. And there were, many interesting audience as well. And one of the things that was coming up a lot was that so many young people send one message to multiple, people. Like one girl or boy could send, "Hey, how are you?" to 25 people in their friend list, just to hope that, maybe 5 will respond and they can start chatting with 5. It just fulfills them in that moment. And when I was hearing these facts, it was all very scary that we have actually forgotten how to be alone. We have forgotten how to just enjoy that silence. And with new technology, the apps, the social media apps, there are a bunch of them. I mean, we are becoming this interesting creature where we want to have validation, where we want to feel constantly that you are not alone. I mean, there are many social media motivational quotes which start with "you are not alone." And it gets a lot of engagement because no human wants to accept that they are alone. But the truth is, you were born alone, you will die alone. And in between the birth and the dying, we just cultivate so many illusions. Illusion of being a mother, a father, a husband, a daughter, and so many labels and roles we start to play just to forget that we are alone. You can play all these roles, but do not forget that you are alone, and that's absolutely okay and beautiful. Because if you start accepting your aloneness, then you will also understand the loneliness, which is very different from aloneness. And I've mentioned about it, I think, in an entire podcast. So I won't go deeper into it, but just in a nutshell, loneliness comes from our ego. It comes from our fear. It comes from our mind. But aloneness comes from our connection with the awareness, the higher self. So the more you meditate, the better you will become with your aloneness. The more you sit silently, the better you will get comfortable with the silence, the intuition within. And you don't have to start being alone all of a sudden. Start with 30 minutes. I'll make it easy for you. Start with 24 minutes, 1 minute for 1 hour. And then after that, extend the 24 minutes to 35 and 40 and 1 hour. And in those, minutes, don't do anything. No phone, no social media, no friends, no family, nothing. Just you being in your silence. You could be in nature. You could wake up early and just be out in the nature. It's very beautiful to walk early morning. So if you could walk early morning, just go for a walk. Just be with yourself. And I can guarantee you, the intuition, the clarity, the strength that you will start to cultivate as a result of your aloneness, it will surprise you. So your homework is to practice the aloneness every day for a few minutes. And you got to write me on Instagram. You know what? Actually make Insta story with how your experience with aloneness is going, and I will share it and I'll give you my feedback. I think we got to make it an engaging experience so that you actually feel you're not alone practicing this aloneness. There are many others who are practicing it, and we are doing it together. So that's all for today. I really hope you practice this, and I hope you will send me some feedback. Thank you for listening. I'll talk to you soon. I hope this podcast may travel through the untapped universe of your darkness, light, courage, passion, and so much more. Please do subscribe and be ready to break your norms. I am so excited and very honored to be part of your sacred journey through this podcast.